Good morning and welcome to the January 2025 open meeting at the Federal Communications Commission. This is my last. So, Madam Secretary, would you please introduce our agenda this morning?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Good morning to you and good morning, Commissioners. For today's meeting, you will hear a series of presentations from Commission Bureau, Office, and Task Force leaders summarizing the work their teams have done over the last 4 years. Presentations will be made in 4 panels. Panel 1 will include the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, the Office of International Affairs, the Broadband Data Task Force, and the Office of Economics and Analytics on the agency's work on expanding connectivity and access to modern communications. Panel 2 will include the Wireline Competition Bureau, the Office of Workplace Diversity, the Office of Communications Business Opportunities, and the Connect to Health Chair, Office of General Counsel, on the agency's work on making communications more just for people, more people in more places. Panel 3 will include the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau, the Enforcement Bureau, the Media Bureau, the Wireline Competition Bureau, the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, the Office of Engineering and Technology, and the Office of International Affairs on the agency's work on national security, public safety, and protecting consumers. Panel 4 will include the Space Bureau, the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, the Office of Engineering and Technology, the Office of Economics and Analytics, and the Office of Managing Director on the agency's work on the future of communications. This is your agenda for today. Alejandro Rourke, Chief of the Consumer and Government Affairs Bureau, will begin the presentations for Panel 1 on the agency's work on expanding connectivity and access to modern communications.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Panel 1, please proceed.
Good morning and Happy New Year, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. Now more than ever, Americans rely on broadband connections for work, learning, healthcare, and access to the information necessary to make informed decisions about our lives, our communities, and our country. The pandemic highlighted the challenges posed by the lack of broadband access, exposing important truths about the digital divide, the impact of the homework gap, and the consequences of digital isolation. Today, having access to fast, reliable, and affordable internet at home is essential to modern commercial and civic life. It provides the physical and digital connections that can support American innovation and leadership, stimulate economic growth, and create new industries with safer working conditions and drive important efficiencies in every sector of our economy. Everywhere and everyone, whether you reside in rural communities or urban areas or anywhere in between, needs access to modern communication technologies in order to benefit from the technological advancements transforming the way that we live, work, learn, and connect with each other and the world. During my tenure as Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, under the leadership of Chairwoman Rosenworcel, we have worked to leverage this moment to build a solid foundation for new and inclusive growth and promote the expansion of digital opportunities nationwide. Specifically, thanks to the congressional directives established in the Bipartisan Infrastructure and Jobs Act, we established the Affordable Connectivity Program, which successfully addressed one of the most persistent and most cited barriers to broadband adoption, and that is the cost. The Affordable Connectivity Program accomplished more to drive social and economic development by bridging our country's digital opportunity divide than any other standalone effort in our nation's history, and represents an important bipartisan consensus and whole of government, whole of industry, whole of state and local civil society and community anchor institutions effort. With over 23 million households enrolled across all 50 states, territories, and federally recognized tribal lands, the success, reach, and impact of the program are unmatched. We set out with a big goal to bridge the digital divide, and through this program, made significant strides towards achieving that goal by developing an outreach plan which deployed diverse strategies to reach eligible households, including federal agency partnerships with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Education, the Social Security Administration, Veterans Affairs, Health and Human Services, the United States Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Interior. We also developed the agency's first federal grant program that established a nationwide network of community navigators in every state, territory, and across tribal lands. We also launched a paid and earned media public awareness campaign, which resulted in 549 million total advertising impressions across paid reach, paid social, media ads, 59,000 radio ads, 344 newspaper ads, 84 million different publications, and those featured on local radio in communities with large concentrations with likely eligible households. The Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, the Office of Native Affairs and Policy, the Disability Rights Office, and the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs collectively hosted over 1,500 events, trainer sessions, and provided technical support for local and national outreach partners. We also developed program education materials in over 10 of the country's most spoken languages, established a multilingual consumer support center, and a dedicated process to review and address ACP complaints to guide our program improvement efforts, as well as launching 2 pilot programs, the Your Home, Your Internet program and the ACP Navigator pilot program. This was a big effort, which yielded some impressive results. So the ACP enrollment represents 1 in 6 households nationwide enrolled in under 3 years, served households in every single county in the United States, with nearly half of ACP households being led by someone over the age of 50. It is worth mentioning that in a survey of ACP program participants, 68% of those households enrolled had inconsistent connectivity or 0 connectivity before the Affordable Connectivity Program. 44% of those enrolled households used ACP for fixed connections in the home. 4 million households counted with an active or former military member, and more than 3.4 million households that sought to enroll in the Affordable Connectivity Program indicated that they participated in the National School Lunch or Breakfast Program, which played a crucial role in addressing the homework gap. 15% of those households in the program are from rural areas, and over 300,000 of those are on tribal lands and tribal households. The Affordable Connectivity Program helped eligible households connect and save on their monthly internet service bill, and most importantly, stay connected, effectively creating new on-ramps to economic mobility for the country's hardest to connect populations, proving itself as an effective intervention to increasing education attainment, lower unemployment, and stimulate economic growth in every sector of the American economy. While this program had to come to a close due to the lack of continued congressional funding, we are hopeful that the foundation we built with the Affordable Connectivity Program can serve as inspiration for any future programs with the same aims, that no one should be kept offline due to the cost of an internet connection. Thank you to all of the teams in the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, our colleagues in WCB, our nationwide network of outreach partners for helping us achieve this important milestone. I see many of those partners in the room with us today. Thank you. Really appreciate you. So along with the establishment of the Affordable Connectivity Program, the Bipartisan Infrastructure and Jobs Act gave the Commission 1 year to establish regulations requiring the display of broadband consumer labels, as well as directing the Commission to conduct a series of public hearings to assess how consumers evaluate broadband service plans and whether current broadband disclosures to consumers are sufficient to make an informed choice. I am glad to report that we accomplished both goals. With this law, Congress directed the FCC to require broadband providers to display, in the form of labels, specific information regarding their internet service plans. The FCC's report and order formally adopted new rules that require broadband providers to display easy-to-understand labels to allow consumers to comparison shop for internet services. Broadband providers must display at the point of sale labels that show the price up front, including any introductory rates as well as speeds, data allowances, and other critical broadband service information, including links to information about network management practices and privacy policies. After input gained from the Commission's 3 public hearings and during multiple rounds of public comment, the FCC's new label rules became effective on April 10th for large providers and October 10th of last year, 2024, for smaller providers with 100,000 or less fewer subscriber lines. The agency is proud of the collaborative and substantive input process that led to the establishment of the labels and marks an important pro-consumer win by facilitating greater price transparency and consumer choice in our country's internet marketplace. The FCC's new broadband label empowers all of us as consumers with easy-to-understand information so that we can make an informed purchasing decision that matches our household needs and our long-term budget. CGB also worked to promote programs that help bridge digital disparities on tribal lands through the modernization of the E-rate program, as well as improving the access and functionality of communication services for people with disabilities. In 2022 and 2023, the Federal Communications Commission unanimously approved 2 orders updating the E-rate program rules, making it easier for tribal libraries to get E-rate funding for much-needed telecommunications and information services, as well as establishing the Tribal Libraries E-rate pilot program, which provides one-on-one technical assistance for tribal libraries through all phases of the E-rate application and reimbursement process. Tribal libraries are often the only source for public internet access in their communities. They tend to serve large geographic areas and offer a connection for education, workforce development, and community resource that helps preserve language and sacred materials. And the E-rate program is now a valuable tool to help support libraries expand digital connectivity on tribal lands. The agency also made important strides to improve the access and functionality of communications for people with disabilities. First, by making video programming more accessible for individuals who are blind or have low vision, by continuing the implementation of the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act. In 2023, we phased in the audio description requirement for up to an additional 10 designated market areas per year until all 210 DMAs are covered. Second, by making smartphones more accessible to people with hearing loss, we adopted new rules requiring that 100% of mobile wireless handset models available in the United States be hearing aid compatible. And for the first time, Americans with hearing loss will be able to choose from among the same phones available to consumers without hearing loss. The Commission also is encouraging handset manufacturers to move away from proprietary Bluetooth coupling standards and ensure more universal connectivity between handset models and hearing aids, including over-the-counter hearing aids devices. Lastly, we improved access to video conferencing services to ensure that people with disabilities can fully participate in video conferencing, including by the use of telecommunications relay services. The Commission also took important steps towards ensuring that people with disabilities have full access to video conferencing service, and as of September of 2024, video conferencing providers have been required to make their services accessible to and usable by people with disabilities. And soon they will also have to provide captioning options and allow third-party captioning and sign language services to work on their platforms. All of this work has been made possible by our expert teams within CGB, the Disability Advisory Committee, our Consumer Advisory Committee, our Native Nations Communication Task Force, and our Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, consisting of dedicated industry, consumer, and government agency representatives who collectively developed and submitted thoughtful and useful recommendations on complex topics such as real-time text, emergency access during the pandemic, how to effectively leverage artificial intelligence for public benefit, best practices for relay services to support individuals with multiple disabilities, direct video calling practices for government agencies, and so much more. So again, thank you all to all of our partners that are here, tuning in online, and across the country for your time and your partnership. So in addition to all of those efforts, we also had a dedicated team of colleagues working to develop the most reliable national broadband map in our nation's history, so that we clearly understand the gaps in our country's infrastructure and facilitate effective and targeted investments to expand this critical resource. Today, I'm joined on the panel by Jean Kidew, Chair of the Broadband Data Task Force, Catherine Matravs, Acting Chief of the Office of Economics and Analytics, and Troy Tanner, Acting Chief of the Office of International Affairs. Jean will provide an update on the agency's broadband data collection and new broadband maps.
Thank you, Alejandro. Good morning, Chair. Over the past 4 years, the Commission has completely overhauled its nationwide collection of broadband availability data and created the National Broadband Map. The FCC's older maps collected data at the census block level, meaning that if a fixed broadband service was available to a single home in the census block, the entire block would show as served on our maps. That's no longer the case. We also built the first of its kind broadband funding map, which provides an overview of federally funded broadband deployment projects. The broadband funding map plays an important role in interagency coordination for broadband deployment programs, including avoiding duplication of federal broadband funding efforts. Reliable availability data is critical to targeting broadband deployment support into areas most in need. The Broadband Data Collection, or BDC, has therefore been a high priority for the Commission. building the data collection, implementing the user-friendly interactive maps envisioned by Congress, and educating providers and other stakeholders about the new processes and building the broadband funding map required expertise of bureaus and offices across the Commission. For example, the new process required that we develop the Broadband Serviceable Location Fabric, a unique data set of 115 million locations, and to build complex IT systems to ingest and validate data and enable third parties to challenge it. Commission staff has also engaged in extensive outreach to providers, federal and state agencies, tribes, and other stakeholders, and developed numerous resources to educate them about how to submit availability data and submit challenges to help us improve it. Staff has also conducted thousands of verification checks of incoming data, engaged with providers to conduct focused verifications and audits, and processed over 4.5 million availability challenges submitted by third parties since November 2022. Commission staff have also coordinated extensively with other federal agencies to add data on their federally funded broadband projects to the broadband funding map. It hardly seems possible that we have released 5 versions of the National Broadband Map and are now starting our 6th biannual collection. The data have already been used to make data-driven decisions on broadband funding, but the effort is far from over. The Broadband Data Act recognizes that broadband deployment is an ever-changing landscape and envisions an ongoing, iterative process so that we have the most up-to-date, precise information possible to make future funding decisions. While the initial map was light years ahead of prior efforts, each map release has improved and updated that original data. All this has been accomplished by virtue of intensive work by dedicated staff across the Commission who are committed to assuring that government and industry have the best possible information to target broadband deployment. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the dozens of FCC staff who have worked tirelessly over the past 4 years to accomplish the National Broadband Map and the Broadband Funding Map, and to build a process that will serve the Commission and the American public well over the coming years as we move toward the goal of 100% broadband availability. And with that, I'm pleased to turn to my colleague, Kate Matraves, who will tell you about progress in broadband deployment.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. As Jean mentioned, reliable broadband service availability data is of crucial importance for targeting broadband deployment support to those areas most in need. And over the past 4 years, there has been significant progress in improving broadband deployment across the United States. Everyone in America, no matter where they live or work, must have access to affordable, reliable, high-speed broadband service to be able to fully participate in modern life. In assessing the extent of fixed broadband deployment, we define an unserved location as one with speeds of less than 25.3 megabits per second, consistent with BEAD and other programs. The BDC data clearly show that the overall number of unserved locations continues to trend down. In June 2022, there were just over 8 million unserved locations as compared to approximately 5.1 million unserved locations by June 2024. Federal funding, including the FCC's high-cost program, the American Rescue Plan, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, as well as state funding and private investment, have all contributed to this increased deployment. In addition, the 2024 Section 706 report relied on BDC data for the first time to assess broadband service availability and increased the fixed speed benchmark to 120 megabits per second based on the current state of broadband needs, usage, and deployment. The report found that as of December 2022, approximately 24 million Americans, or approximately 7% of the US population, lacked access to broadband service at speeds of at least 120 megabits per second. The 2024 Communications Marketplace report found that as of December 2023, approximately 95% of Americans had access to fixed broadband service at speeds of 120 megabits per second or higher, with approximately 71% of Americans having access to 2 or fewer providers at those speeds. It also shows that between 2022 and 2023, the percentage of Americans with access to 5G mobile broadband at minimum speeds of 35.3 megabits per second increased from 91% to approximately 94%. Our progress in improving the extent of broadband deployment continues to march on. Thank you so much to all the staff across the Commission who have worked tirelessly with the broadband data collection data, as well as on the Section 706 report and the 2024 Communications Marketplace report. And thank you for the opportunity to present today. I am pleased to turn to my colleague, Troy Tanner, to discuss the great work of the Office of International Affairs.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. The FCC's work to expand access to communications does not stop at the U.S. borders. We cannot achieve our goals without effective advocacy at the international level, particularly for those services that by their very nature are global, but also for advancing the broader goal of an interconnected world. An example of this is our advocacy in advance of the 2023 World Radio Conference, or WRC 23. The United States was able to achieve outcomes that will support 5G connectivity, pave the way for 6G, and bolster U.S. leadership in the growing space economy. Our success at the WRC was built on a strong foundation of international relationships, fostered at the staff level all the way to the chairwoman and commissioners. Over the last 4 years, OIA's International Visitors Program met with 1,352 representatives and stakeholders across 179 countries. And the chairwoman and commissioners met with dozens of regulatory counterparts, both at the FCC headquarters and during trips to international events and foreign bilaterals. Of particular significance is the FCC's engagement with the Ukrainian regulator, formalized through the Memorandum of Understanding that the chairwoman signed in February 2023. In addition to our bilateral relationships, OIA also works within the international organizations to advance FCC policies and United States government goals. For example, the International Telecommunications Union, or ITU, is a critical venue for advancing policies to expand global connectivity and for negotiating global or regional allocation, harmonization, and efficient use of spectrum and associated orbits. That is why the election of an American, Doreen Bogdan-Martin, to the position of ITU Secretary General in 2022 is so significant. The FCC provided substantial support to this effort, participating in international gatherings and meeting with dozens of counterparts around the world at senior levels to advocate for the U.S. candidate. In addition to the ITU, we participate in several international organizations, including the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, the International Civil Aviation Organization, the International Maritime Organization, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the World Trade Organization, or WTO, and regional communication organizations such as the Inter-American Telecommunication Commission, or CTEL, in the Americas. As a critical component of our advocacy, we have been successful in getting FCC staff appointed to leadership roles in various international organizations, including within the ITU, CTEL, and the WTO. We thank you for this opportunity to highlight all of this important work that the FCC staff has been involved in internationally to help expand access to communications.
Thank you all to everyone from Panel 1. It's a lot. I'm going to have remarks at the end of our 4 panels, but I want to offer an opportunity after this for each of my commissioners if they'd like to say something at this time. Commissioner Carr?
Thank you. I will follow your lead on that and track you to mostly holding, but obviously just, thank you for now, and we'll have longer statements after you.
Commissioner Starks?
Yes, Thank you for all the hard work. ACP was something that was a deep passion of mine, and the team has just excelled in getting that program up and running. Your home, your internet was a great success. I deeply thank you for your work alongside with me there. Thank you to the team, Broadband Maps, connectivity everywhere, in particular Troy. Kudos to you for stepping in where the unfortunate passing of Ethan. Somebody who I worked with, and just what I've seen your work there alongside in Dubai and Bucharest and other places that I've worked with the team with. So thanks so much for your special effort there.
Commissioner Symington.
Thank you. Just want to express my appreciation and support for everyone's work, but I'll confine longer remarks till the end.
Commissioner Gomez.
Thanks. I also am going to have longer remarks at the end, but I do want to say thank you to each of you and to your teams for all your hard work and leadership.
All right, Madam Secretary, please announce the next panel on today's agenda.
Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners, next you will hear presentations from Panel 2 on the agency's work on making communications more just for more people in more places. Trent Hargrader, Chief of the Wireline Competition Bureau, will begin the presentations.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Panel 2, when you're ready, please proceed.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. That was a very impressive Panel 1. We hope to walk in those footsteps. So with me at the table, directly to my left, is my friend Dewana Terry. She's Special Advisor to Chairwoman Rosenworcel, as well as the Director of the Office of Workplace Diversity and Head of the Task Force to Prevent Digital Discrimination. And she's been an amazing colleague for these past few years. To my right, Jeff Tignor, who's the Acting Director of the Office of Communications Business Opportunities, also a friend from long ago, and it's good to see you again. It's been a while. Karen Onije, far to my right, who has toiled long and hard on many important issues with us. She is the Deputy General Counsel and also the Connect to Health Chief of Staff, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say today. I really want to thank these colleagues for all of their help and all of their true contributions, because many of the successes that I'm going to describe are accountable to them as well. So when we reflect back on the last 4 years, it's hard not to think about the power of connection. And it's not just a broadband or a voice connection, but the meaningful connections that power everyday American lives. School, family, support networks, religious institutions, even places of work. In the Wireline Bureau in particular, we've worked hard to ensure that everyone, including our most vulnerable populations, can stay connected. We've instituted important changes, launched programs that, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, helped overcome debilitating isolation, offered new pathways for people to seek help, and pushed broadband technologies to meet people where they are. What our efforts have shown is that connection can be life-saving and is so essential to participate meaningfully in modern society. Our projects, our proceedings use broadband and voice to ensure that the connections we need most, those to family, education, healthcare, mental health services, remain intact. So I'll give you a few examples, just a few. First, after 20 years in the making, and thanks very much to a grandmother's love for her grandson, we implemented the Martha Wright Reed Act to ensure that the incarcerated population could call home and hear the voice or see the face of loved ones, even when separated by state lines. For too long, the families of incarcerated individuals were forced to pay exorbitant and unreasonable rates to keep connected with their incarcerated loved ones. In 2023, the President signed into law the Martha Wright Reed Act and gave the Commission new authority to establish meaningful and reasonable limits on the costs of phone and video calls for incarcerated persons. So what do we do in response? In July of this year, which is the earliest that we could do it per the statute, we adopted rules that, among other things, significantly lowered existing rate caps for out-of-state international calls and for any type of connectional facility. And we applied those rate caps to in-state calls as well. And for the first time, we set interim rate caps for video communications, communications that are so important to be able to see the face of those who are incarcerated. And that includes video visitation. These are incredibly important steps, and thanks to Congress and thanks to you all, we were able to accomplish these at our earliest time. So what else did we do? Over the past 4 years, we also expanded the power of the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, which is a vital resource for people experiencing a mental health crisis. The Lifeline is a national network of more than 200 crisis centers, supported by state and local resources, as well as our partners at the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And the Lifeline helps thousands of people overcome crisis situations every day. When someone calls 988, for example, they are connected to a mental health professional who can provide meaningful and immediate assistance. So what did we do? Building on this success and recognizing that millions of Americans are more likely to text than call these days, in July of 2022, we expanded the Lifeline to ensure that people could be connected to specialized counselors via text, such as an LGBTIQ plus affirming counselor or a Spanish-speaking counselor, all over text. Our goal has always been to continue pushing this service so that it reaches its full potential. So we started with connecting people via cell phones, then we went to text, and most recently, we mandated geo-routing, which is a very FCC thing. This ensures that people in need are connected to local crisis centers, something that we heard over and over again is so important to that critical first care. And so what we did, it may be different than the crisis center associated with where the caller's area code is from, but now they can talk to someone who's local. And everything that we've done, everything that you all have done, ensures that anyone in crisis can reach the support they need in the moment that matters most. So what else? We took steps to ensure that survivors of domestic violence could seek help and leave an abuser safely. These survivors may not have control over their mobile phone plans, which may be managed by their abuser, so it's critically important that they be able to access an independent phone connection and be able to communicate and access other available services without fear of their communications, location, or other private information being revealed to their abusers. So following Congress's lead, in November 2023, we implemented the Safe Connections Act and took 3 important measures. First, we required mobile phone providers to separate those lines upon request to eliminate the ability of the abuser to access a survivor's communication, location, or other private information. Second, we protected the survivor's privacy by requiring providers to omit from consumer-facing logs all calls and text messages to domestic violence hotlines. And finally, through our Universal Service Lifeline program, survivors are also eligible for a subsidized voice and broadband service. And just this past fall, just ahead of the 30th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act, we announced that the rules implemented in the Safe Connections Act are in effect, and that survivors experiencing financial hardship are now eligible to receive up to 6 months of the emergency lifeline support. So what else? We also worked to close the homework gap by supporting schools and libraries who are on the front lines of education, often devoting their own resources to make broadband more readily available for students, teachers, library patrons. For example, the Universal Service E-rate program now supports schools by helping with the cost of broadband on school buses. Some students, as we know, commute hours to and from school and may not have a broadband connection at home. With more and more schoolwork going online, this means those students are left on the wrong side of the digital divide. Their bus ride may be the best opportunity to complete their schoolwork. And following on the success of the congressionally mandated Emergency Connectivity Fund, we also now permit E-rate funding to be used by schools and libraries for Wi-Fi hotspot lending programs. These lending programs will help close the digital divide by providing students, teachers, and patrons access to an affordable, robust broadband connection at home. And also, as mentioned in the previous panel, we also focused on targeting the E-rate program to tribal areas, understanding that these areas often face constraints such as limited infrastructure, geographic isolation, financial hardship, and low population density that makes it difficult to secure support for broadband connections. So in particular, our Tribal Library Pilot Program provides much needed support to tribal libraries that were either new to E-rate or had trouble in applying to E-rate in the past. And we did so by assigning them a tribal library advocate who guided the library through each step of the E-rate program application. The pilot program provided support to 34 tribal libraries. 10 of those libraries in Alaska, California, New Mexico, New York, and Utah completed the full E-rate program application process and received over $230,000 in funding commitments. And although these numbers may seem small, particularly in the context of some of our other universal service programs, they are significant to these tribal communities and the E-rate program, where participation was just under about 200 tribal libraries. So we're continuing to push to make sure that people can take advantage in tribal lands of our E-rate program. So building on this pilot program, the Tribal Library E-rate Advocacy Program, also we heard before, provides ongoing permanent support to tribal libraries through one-on-one assistance and specialized tribal focus. What else? Well, we can't figure out where we all were at the beginning of this administration. So during the pandemic, we also launched several congressionally mandated programs aimed at helping Americans. First, by funding telehealth equipment and systems for hospitals, especially in rural, tribal, and low-income areas through the COVID-19 Health Tele program, we helped the most vulnerable receive crucial medical attention while also protecting the patients and the healthcare providers from unnecessary exposure to the virus. The program offered over $450 million available in funding commitments to nearly 1,000 healthcare providers in all 50 states, Puerto Rico, the District of Columbia, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, American Samoa, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. It clearly was an all-of-America effort. And this program provided funding for telemedicine infrastructure, allowing these providers, these healthcare providers, to deliver critical healthcare services via telemedicine. Similarly, we also have the Emergency Connectivity Program, which supported remote student learning and helped bridge the gap for students and teachers in rural, tribal, and economically disadvantaged areas who did not have reliable access to broadband at home. When the pandemic forced schools to close their doors, this program provided funding to schools and libraries to purchase necessary devices, things like laptops, tablets, and Wi-Fi hotspots to support this remote learning. And by prioritizing the needs of low-income families, the fund helped ensure that students could continue their education even if they didn't have access to internet at their home. We announced over $7 billion in funding commitments, providing support to approximately 18 million students with this program, 11,500 schools, over 1,000 libraries, and funding nearly 13 million connected devices. It truly is an amazing effort, and thanks all to Congress and to you all for setting this up. Finally, and last but not least, because we heard a lot about it in that first panel, I do want to touch on the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, another congressionally mandated program that came out of the pandemic, and that later became the Affordable Connectivity Program. We built that twice over a couple of years. That program supports home broadband connections for millions of low-income households. And Alejandro did a great job of talking about the success, so I'm not going to belabor that, but there were many people in our bureau and in our groups up here that helped make that a success as well. And I know that the next panel is a little bit of a preview. I know the next panel will discuss national security concerns, but in WCB, we do have two important programs aimed at securing our nation's networks. One is the Secure and Trusted Communications and Networks Reimbursement Program, which Congress recently fully funded, and also the E-rate cybersecurity, the cybersecurity pilot program. And through these two programs, it's a keen recognition the need for secure and trustworthy communications networks. Finally, and I promise I'm getting to the finally part, we've seen clearly over the last 4 years that more and more of our daily lives have gone online, and we're consuming more data than ever before. So in addition, we also launched a proceeding to explore the impacts of these broadband data caps on American consumers. And in an era when connection is more important than ever, we want to ensure that those connections remained affordable and accessible. So these are just the highlights, of course. At the heart of all of our work is the belief that connection is life-changing, whether it's ensuring incarcerated individuals can call home, expanding the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline to reach more people in need, or helping close the homework gap by supporting broadband access for students and teachers. We all understand now more than ever that staying connected is essential. As we continue our efforts, we will remain focused on making sure that everyone, especially those in vulnerable communities, can stay connected and thrive in an increasingly digital world. I'm especially incredibly grateful to the staff of the Wireline Competition Bureau for their dedication and for their tireless work in making all of this possible. Their commitment to ensuring that no one is left behind is truly inspiring. So now I will turn the microphone over to my colleagues. Next up is Jeff.
Thanks, Trent. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. The Office of Communications Business Opportunities works with the Commission's bureaus and offices to develop policy that takes into consideration the competitive concerns of small entities, thereby expanding opportunities for small businesses and promoting a diverse and inclusive economy that brings the benefits of communications technology to everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to share just some of what the office accomplished in FY 2024. As part of its responsibility to advise the Commission on small business matters, ACBO attorneys reviewed over 140 draft items for compliance with the Regulatory Flexibility Act, a law signed into effect by the late President Jimmy Carter, which requires the Commission to analyze the economic impact of its proposals and consider alternatives that mitigate disproportionate impacts on small businesses. ACBO also coordinated meetings with FCC staff and small business stakeholders to increase small business engagement on important policy issues, and increased our outreach and public engagement efforts by updating our website, publishing a monthly news digest for small businesses with updates and reminders about FCC proceedings and comment deadlines, and publish monthly features highlighting conversations with small business leaders in the telecommunications and technology industries. To stay informed about the communications and tech policy issues that matter most to innovators and entrepreneurs, ACBO attended and exhibited at industry events, including last week's Consumer Electronics Show, and attended quarterly U.S. Small Business Administration Tech and Telecom Roundtables. Finally, to provide technical assistance to small entities, ACBO staff fielded small business inquiries and coordinated publication of 26 small entity compliance guides for Commission rules that became effective in 2024. ACBO is looking forward to continuing this important work on behalf of the Commission in 2025. Thank you. Karen.
Thank you, Trent. Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to share about the Connect to Health Task Force. I'd like to go back for a minute. Over the last decade, the vision of the Connect to Health Task Force has been and remains a very simple one. Everyone connected. Everyone connected to the people, services, and information that they need to get well and stay healthy. And grounded by this imperative, the task force, chaired by our General Counsel, Michelle Ellison, has led a series of sustained efforts to fully understand the intersection of broadband, advanced technology, and health, and to make recommendations to the Commission on the actions it can take to ensure that the benefits of these innovative technologies and services are available to all Americans, including those in rural and underserved communities. And our work in recent years recognizes a fundamental reality: that broadband is increasingly the currency of healthcare. And this is not just in terms of cutting-edge treatments, although those are very important, but also in terms of overall cost savings and efficiencies, tackling preventable maternal deaths, meeting the needs of our veterans, seniors, and people with disabilities, addressing persistent physician and specialty care shortages in rural and underserved communities, helping to solve public health crises like opioid addiction and overdose, and also enabling national prevention and wellness initiatives to succeed at scale. So that is why we are pleased to briefly highlight just 3 of the task force accomplishments over the last few years with your support, Chairwoman Rosenworcel. First is the Commission's Broadband and Maternal Health Initiative, including our work to implement the Data Mapping to Save Moms' Lives Act. As you know, Congress sought to reduce the prevalence of poor maternal health outcomes by generating maps that provide insight on the intersection of broadband and maternal health. In other words, where maternal mortality rates are especially high and where critical telehealth resources need to be deployed. Now, this was a novel effort, and it required significant innovation. In fact, recognizing that the United States is the only developed country experiencing rising rates of maternal mortality and severe maternal morbidity, and that more than 80% of maternal deaths are preventable, the FCC took a leadership role. It hosted a national broadband and maternal health roundtable in partnership with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to accelerate a cross-disciplinary dialogue on the connected future of maternity care. Second is the Mapping Broadband Health in America platform, a one-of-a-kind visualization tool for promoting data-driven decision-making at the intersection of broadband and health. The platform was recently expanded twice. First, in June 2023, to meet the congressional directive to incorporate maternal health data. And later, in December of 2024, in a major overhaul that includes expanded broadband connectivity and health data. Now, these latest updates incorporate over 60 new broadband maternal health, chronic disease, opioids, cancer, and demographic data sets, as well as innovative features and functionalities that will allow policymakers and other users to visualize patterns and better target areas where broadband connectivity could have the greatest impact in health. Now, the final initiative of significant note for today is the task force's groundbreaking work on broadband as a social determinant of health. This is a critical framework that could inform both broadband and public health policies going forward. And our research shows that there is a strong relationship between increasing broadband adoption at the community level and improved maternal health and other population health outcomes, even when you control for other factors like education and income. And this underscores the value of programs like the Rural Health Care Program that WCB leads and the Connected Care Pilot Program. And we want to thank the Commission for its sustained support and vision, and we want to salute the many stakeholders at the Commission, our sister agencies, and outside government who really have enthusiastically contributed to and informed these important initiatives. Working together, we can fully realize the transformative power and potential of broadband in health. And now over to my colleague, Dawana Terry.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. I'm going to start by extending some thanks and kudos to my colleague to my right, Trent, who said such kind words at the beginning of the panel. We appreciate your efforts as well and your collaboration and collegiality in our various efforts. So I just wanted to start with that. As Director of the FCC's Office of Workplace Diversity, I am honored to lead an interdisciplinary team of FCC staff supporting the FCC's mission by ensuring equal employment opportunities for all. In February 2022, I was given the privilege of leading the FCC Task Force to Prevent Digital Discrimination in collaboration with my distinguished colleagues, Sanford Williams and Alejandro Rourke. The work of the task force, an anchor of the FCC's Combating Digital Discrimination Initiative, embodies the principle of making communications more just for more people in more places. The task force focused on creating rules and policies to combat digital discrimination and to promote equal access to broadband. Much of the policy work flowing from the task force's cross-agency efforts is reflected in the Prevention and Elimination of Digital Discrimination Proceeding, GN docket number 22-69. In this proceeding, pursuant to the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the FCC implemented several directives to combat digital discrimination, including rules to facilitate equal access to broadband, model policies and best practices states and local governments can leverage to prevent digital discrimination, and revisions to our public complaint process to seek feedback more prominently from consumers who may be facing digital discrimination in their communities. What poignantly speaks to the focus of this panel is the underlying goal of the task force efforts and how it accomplished its work. The underlying goal: to promote equal access to broadband throughout the nation, with the availability of digital opportunity being the lived reality for every person. The task force met, collaborated, and engaged with a host of stakeholders. We also hosted a series of public listening sessions to gain additional information and understanding from affected communities. Further, the task force provided opportunities for consumers and consumer advocates to share their experiences and stories through meetings with task force leadership and members, the Broadband Access Experience Forum, and the FCC's informal complaint process. Through our work, the task force gained first-hand knowledge about consumers' unique experiences and challenges in obtaining broadband, as well as the perspectives of other interested stakeholders. As anticipated, the work touched almost every part of the agency. As a result, on behalf of the task force leadership team, we thank everyone at the FCC who contributed to every aspect of the work. In sum, the totality of these efforts provided the Commission with a record for charting a course to prevent digital discrimination and for making communications more just for more people in more places. Thank you.
Thank you to Panel 2. Tremendous work to make communications more fair for more people all across the country. I'll have longer remarks at the end, but let me turn to my colleagues. Commissioner Carr.
Thank you again. I'll continue to follow your lead and defer on this one. Thanks.
Commissioner Starks.
Yes, thank you for all the hard work that you've done. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Symington.
Thank you very much. We'll also defer remarks.
All right, and Commissioner Gomez.
And I too will defer remarks, but thank you
Okay.
to you and your teams for all your hard work and your leadership.
All right, thank you. Madam Secretary, can you please announce the next panel on today's agenda?
Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners, next you will hear from Panel 3, beginning with Deborah Jordan, Chief of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau, featuring presentations on the agency's work on national security, public safety, and protecting consumers.
All right. Panel 3, when you're ready, please proceed.
Good morning, Chairwoman Rosenworcel and Commissioners. I'm pleased to be here this morning with Peter Hyun, Acting Chief of the Enforcement Bureau, Rosemary Harold, Acting Chief of the Media Bureau, Alejandro Roark, Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, Tom Sullivan, Deputy Chief of the Office of International Affairs, Jody Griffin, Deputy Chief of the Wireline Competition Bureau, and Jamie Coleman, Associate Chief of the Office of Engineering and Technology. As you know, the first sentence of the Communications Act lays out the FCC's national security and public safety mission. We are to make available rapid, efficient, and nationwide communication service for the purpose of national defense and for the purpose of promoting safety of life and property. The mission has guided us over the past 4 years. And before I highlight some of our accomplishments, I want to stress that these represent the cooperative efforts of the bureaus and offices throughout the agency, and I'd like to thank everyone for their support in these efforts. So again, I'm going to highlight a number of efforts at a very high level. So to begin, the Commission took significant action in the recent years to protect against national security threats through the communication supply chain of equipment and services in the U.S. For example, the Commission launched the Secure and Trusted Communications Networks Reimbursement Program, more commonly known as Rip and Replace, to remove equipment and services from companies like Huawei and ZTE from communications networks. Thank you to the Wireline Competition Bureau for its work driving this critical initiative. Now that Congress has recently authorized the FCC to auction certain spectrum to fully fund the shortfall in the Rip and Replace program, the agency has initiated a rulemaking to run the auction to support the new funding available for removal, replacement, and disposal of covered communications equipment and services. Earlier, the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau published the first ever covered list of equipment and services that have been deemed to pose a threat to our national security, and it has been updated several times since. And the Commission adopted new rules prohibiting communications equipment on this list from being authorized for importation or sale in the U.S. Thank you to the Office of Engineering and Technology for leading this work. On another front, we work closely with our partners at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, other federal partners, and industry to bolster the integrity of the Border Gateway Protocol, which is central to the Internet's routing system, and we proposed reporting requirements to improve Internet routing security. Next, the Commission also adopted the framework for a new voluntary cybersecurity labeling program for wireless consumer Internet of Things products. Qualifying consumer smart products that meet critical cybersecurity standards will now be able to bear a label including a U.S. Cyber Trust Mark that will help consumers make informed purchasing decisions, differentiate trustworthy products in the marketplace, and create incentives for manufacturers to meet higher cybersecurity standards. We are now standing up this comprehensive program and most recently selected third-party administrators to help run it. In another area, the Commission took action to improve the reliability and resilience of wireless networks. Our new mandatory disaster response initiative requires wireless providers to work together during disasters to reduce the impact of outages to the public. We activated it for the first time this past hurricane season. And you are all familiar with our Disaster Information and Reporting System, or DIRS, where communications providers submit outage information to us during disasters. We analyze this data and issue daily communication status reports, which inform response efforts and keep the public apprised of restoration status. Well, the Commission recently launched a program to share this outage information in real time with state, federal, territorial, and tribal nation agencies to help save lives. And the Commission expanded the scope and use of DIRS to close information gaps. When hurricanes approached, we deployed staff to disaster areas to conduct pre- and post-landfall spectrum surveys. Through these drive tests, often in challenging conditions, we determined the impact to radio and television and assessed capabilities for emergency services. We also analyzed the outage data submitted to us through DIRS and issued daily status reports for hurricanes Milton, Helene, Francine, Debbie, Beryl, Lee, Idalia, Nicole, Ian, Fiona, Ida, and Nicholas, not to mention several tropical storms, wildfires in Hawaii and New Mexico, and other disasters. We also stayed on top of sunny day outages, including issuing an investigative report detailing the cause and impact of a nationwide wireless service outage earlier last year, along with recommendations to help prevent similar outages in the future. On the 911 front, the Commission required wireless providers to more precisely route wireless 911 calls and real-time texts to 911 call centers, which will result in faster response times and ultimately save lives. The Commission established a national framework to accelerate the rollout of next-generation 911 and support the deployment of advanced 911 capabilities, including video, text, and data that will make the 911 system more resilient and help responders to save lives. The Commission also adopted rules to help end 911 fee diversion. The Commission also adopted rules to ensure that 911 call centers receive timely and useful notifications on network disruptions that affect 911 service. This will help call centers maintain emergency services and inform the public when to use an alternate phone number to call them. Similarly, the Commission adopted rules to ensure that relevant officials receive timely information about 988 outages so that they can track trends and inform the public of alternate ways to contact the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. With regard to emergency alerting, the Commission also strengthened emergency alerting in a host of ways, with some improvements now underway and others already up and running. For example, the Commission is making wireless emergency alerts, or WEA, more accessible by expanding multilingual alerting. In the future, participating wireless providers will support these life-saving messages in 13 of the most commonly spoken languages in the U.S., as well as English and American Sign Language. Participating wireless providers will also support the inclusion of maps in WEA messages that will show your location in relation to where the emergency is actually occurring. The Commission also established a new alert code to help save missing and endangered persons by delivering critical alert messages to the public over television, radio, and wireless phones. The new alert code will be especially beneficial to tribal communities where American Indians and Alaska Natives are at disproportionate risk of violence, murder, or vanishing. Thank you to our colleagues in the Consumer and Government Affairs Bureau for their great work on this. The Commission also adopted rules to make emergency alert messages on television more clear and easier to understand and improve the way states plan for emergency alerts. In addition, we joined our partners at FEMA to run 2 nationwide tests of WEA and the emergency alert system. For the first time ever, we entered into partnerships with dozens of state and local governments agencies to assess the geographic accuracy of WEA through local tests. For all of these tests, our analysis informed our policy making and the public. Last but not least, in the area of supporting first responders communication, the Commission modernized and streamlined our rules for priority services, which helps first responders and other emergency personnel communicate during disasters. The Commission also completed the 800 megahertz rebanding, which eliminated a major interference threat to public safety radio systems and freed up additional spectrum capacity for public safety in the band. And the Commission established a nationwide framework to solidify the 4.9 gigahertz band status as public safety spectrum while enabling the integration of technologies such as 5G. These are just some of the action taken in the past 4 years. I didn't want to spend the whole meeting just covering public safety and national security issues. But I would like to thank the dedicated staff and talented staff of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau. Through many late nights, weekends, and often difficult conditions, the team has consistently delivered on its mission to protect and serve the American people. Thank you also for all the other staff in the bureaus and offices that contributed. Now I'll turn over to Peter Hyun, Acting Chief of the Enforcement Bureau.
Thank you, Deb. Good morning, Chairwoman Rosenworcel, Commissioners. Thank you to Deb Jordan again for the introduction. I am privileged to serve as the Acting Chief of the FCC's Enforcement Bureau alongside its talented professionals. Before I begin, I want to note that the highlights that will follow represent a small snapshot of the Bureau's efforts over the past 4 years. I'm limited by both time and topic of this panel, but it's important to say that I'm extremely grateful and proud of all of the hard work undertaken by the dedicated public servants that make up the Bureau, as well as of those here at the Commission. In the past year alone, we have issued enforcement monetary actions amounting to over $340 million. That's over 80 enforcement items released against entities and individuals who have violated our rules and, in turn, placed at risk not only the consumers who rely on our communications networks, but our nation's security as well. While monetary fines deter future bad acts, we have also sought to ensure that regulated entities implement measurable changes in practices and policies to comply with the law and the Commission's rules. As you will hear, Through our consent decrees and adopting orders, the Bureau required necessary improvements in how regulatees protect consumer data, fix network vulnerabilities, and timely report incidents to the Commission. These adopting orders and resolutions will protect American consumers while simultaneously hardening our nation's networks from attacks from foreign adversaries. After its creation in 2023, the Enforcement Bureau led the Commission's first Privacy and Data Protection Task Force. I want to thank all of the bureaus and offices for their continued efforts to coordinate across the Commission on a wide range of enforcement, rulemaking, and public awareness needs related to privacy and data protection. Through this task force, we undertook a number of substantial enforcement actions to protect consumers. We completed and resolved data breach investigations with all 3 major wireless carriers, amounting to more than $50 million in civil penalties, and ordered significant changes to company cybersecurity and data protection practices. We issued over $200 million in fines related to the major carriers' failure to protect consumer location data. In a case that was the first of its kind, the Bureau settled an investigation involving a carrier that violated not only the Commission's data breach notification rules, but also the carrier's obligations under a national security agreement with agencies from the Committee for the Assessment of Foreign Participation in the United States Telecommunications Services Sector, commonly known as Team Telecom. Compliance with that national security agreement was a condition of the company's FCC license. We obtained a resolution in an investigation into a leading provider of captioning services for hearing and speech impaired individuals for that company's illegal retention of call content. That settlement totaled $34 million, an amount allocated to recovering taxpayer dollars for the U.S. Treasury, reimbursing FCC programs, and requiring data protection improvements by the company across its suite of services. With respect to robocalls and robotexts, through the robocall response team, we have strengthened the robocall mitigation database and our stir-shaken rules to reduce the number of scams that reach consumers. We have also mandated technology to stop illegal call spoofing, thereby empowering consumers to decide which calls they would like to receive. The Bureau supported the Commission's efforts to advance rules that enable the Commission to red flag phone numbers and require carriers to block texts from flagged numbers. In a case that was the first of its kind, involving generative AI and audio deepfakes, the Commission adopted a $6 million forfeiture order against an individual, Steve Kramer, for perpetrating an illegal spoofing campaign, carrying an audio deepfake purporting to be President Joe Biden in an attempt to interfere with the New Hampshire presidential primary election. And we entered into a settlement agreement with Lingo Telecom for its role in carrying this traffic without properly adhering to know your customer obligations. We issued our first ever Consumer Communications Information Services Threat, or CSIS designation, against Royal Tiger, a classification name given to a group of individuals and entities operating in India, the UK, the UAE, and the United States, who persistently facilitated illegal robocalls aimed at defrauding and harming consumers. The classification was sent to state and federal and international partners and helps ensure that Royal Tiger traffic is no longer carried on the U.S. network. And we have already followed up with CSIS 2, Green Mirage. Green Mirage is a network of threat actors that impersonate mortgage institutions to take advantage of vulnerable homeowners experiencing financial hardship. Green Mirage has spoofed the phone numbers of over 400 lenders and defrauded victims of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Our CSIS 2 designation exposes Green Mirage's tactics, educates consumers, and strengthens industry and law enforcement's ability to detect these bad actors. Through the Bureau's Spring Cleaning Initiative, we have sent cease and desist letters to a series of voice providers for facilitating illegal robocall campaigns on their networks that ranged from fake student loan scam calls to fraudulent debt consolidation efforts. The Bureau's national security-related efforts also involve some of the most important and impactful results. With close collaboration with our sister bureaus and offices, EB supported the Commission's shared goal to promote the reliability and security of our nation's networks. After a cyber attack caused a major 911 network outage, we resolved an investigation with Charter for $15 million. The settlement included first-of-its-kind cybersecurity compliance terms, such as network segmentation and vulnerability mitigation management. In cases that highlight the Commission's important role regulating submarine cable landing licenses, the Bureau resolved 2 investigations for $1 million each into America Mobile submarine cable system, which connected the United States to 2 additional cable landing stations located in Colombia and Costa Rica, respectively, without FCC approval. Critically, the entity circumvented Team Telecom's important national security and law enforcement risk reviews, which is an essential part of the Commission's decision as to whether an authorization is in the public interest. These settlements were groundbreaking. While they involved avoiding national security and law enforcement risk reviews for submarine cable licenses, they also demonstrated that avoiding Team Telecom reviews for foreign investment in communications infrastructure will similarly not be tolerated. And last year, the Commission enforced rules to hold accountable foreign manufacturers of FCC-authorized equipment, including consumer wireless devices. This demonstrated that we will not hesitate to act to protect the integrity of the Commission's equipment authorization program. Lastly, I'll close by highlighting some of the important relationships we've established with our federal, state, local, and international partners to protect consumers and protect those who seek to compromise our communications networks. The Bureau now has partnerships with 49 states, DC, and Guam on robocall enforcement matters. We now have information sharing agreements with several international partners, including Ofcom and the Information Commissioner's Office in the United Kingdom, as well as the Privacy Commissioner of Canada. And for the first time in the Bureau's history, the Enforcement Bureau convened regulatory enforcement partners from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom to discuss enforcement tools to address new and emerging threats to cybersecurity, data privacy, and national security. We hope to continue holding this event in the years ahead. And with that, I would like to reiterate my thanks to Chairwoman Rosenworcel, the commissioners, the bureaus and offices, and in particular, all of the Enforcement Bureau staff for all of their hard work. Now let me turn it over to Rosemary Harold, the Acting Chief of the Media Bureau.
Good morning, Chairwoman and Commissioners. In the Media Bureau, an active consumer protection agenda included eliminating hidden billing fees and requiring all-in pricing disclosures by cable operators and satellite TV providers. Access to clear and accurate pricing helps consumers make informed choices. Also, we are requiring that cable and satellite TV providers provide public notifications when blackouts of a broadcast station occur due to a retransmission consent impasse that lasts more than 24 hours. This action allows consumers access to prompt and accurate information about service disruptions. In addition, we took actions to make video programming more accessible to people with disabilities. We adopted a plan to gradually expand audio description requirements to all television markets. And we updated closed captioning display setting standards by requiring that such standards be readily accessible to individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing. These enhancements to accessibility will enable people with disabilities to be better connected and informed by TV programming. Moreover, to enable all consumers to be better informed, we adopted rules requiring broadcast radio and TV stations to identify and disclose purchases of airtime sponsored by foreign governments. This action upholds a long-standing tenet of broadcasting that the public has a right to know the identity of those who use the public airwaves. Also, to support transparency, we initiated a proceeding against the use of artificial intelligence in political advertising. Speaking of future technologies, we accepted the National Association of Broadcasters' invitation to participate in a public-private Future of TV initiative. This initiative worked to identify a roadmap new ideas, and solutions to make an orderly transition from ATSC 1.0 to 2.0 based services as smooth as possible and at the lowest possible cost for consumers. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight these important efforts and to extend my gratitude to the staff of the Media Bureau for all the stuff that they do, visible or not, day after day. I'd now like to turn the mic over to our next presenter, Alejandro Roark of CGB.
Good afternoon. Protecting consumers is a core mission of the FCC. This is a responsibility that we have taken seriously over the past 4 years by pursuing an aggressive consumer protection agenda with a focus on doing everything that we can to prevent unwanted or illegal robocalls and robotexts. First, the Commission bolstered its existing rules on robocall blocking and robocall mitigation, requiring that providers block illegal and unwanted calls before they reach consumers. Our new rules have helped us stop scam calls coming from abroad, close loopholes within our existing rules, and strengthen consumers' ability to stop unwanted and illegal calls. The Commission also adopted its first ever rules requiring the blocking of illegal robotexts. Unfortunately, illegal texts are becoming a common occurrence, and they present many of the same problems as illegal calls: an annoyance at best and a vehicle for fraud at worst. Our rules now require that text messaging service providers block certain types of text that are highly likely to be illegal. Second, the Commission moved quickly to ensure that consumers are protected from harmful AI-generated robocalls and robotexts. The Commission proposed its first ever rule to require that callers and texters inform consumers if such calls or texts are AI-generated. In doing so, the Commission proposed certain protections to ensure that positive uses of AI that may help people with disabilities, for example, can thrive. Implemented together, these proposals represent a first step in addressing emerging technology's impact on consumers. On top of blocking and our focus on AI, the Commission made clear that when consumers change their mind about consenting to wanted robocalls or robotexts, they should be able to quickly and easily revoke that consent. And just last week, the Commission adopted new rules to further tighten filing requirements for the robocall mitigation database to better ensure widespread compliance and highlighted awareness of provider responsibilities to protect consumers. In addition to its work on robocalls and robotext, the Commission took further efforts to enhance our consumer privacy initiatives and to ensure that consumers receive quality customer service from their providers. Most recently, by launching a formal proceeding to review the quality of customer service that cable, broadband, satellite television, and voice providers give to their customers. This proceeding can help pave the way for future actions to ensure that the customers are treated fairly and receive the best possible customer support from their providers. In closing, I'd like to thank the staff of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau for their hard work and diligence in developing policies that protect consumers. Without their dedication, none of these important policy achievements could have been accomplished. Now I'm happy to turn the mic over to Tom Sullivan from the Office of International Affairs, who will now provide an update on national security and international affairs.
Thank you, Alejandro. Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners. The Office of International Affairs is proud to describe the efforts we have undertaken to promote national security interests. In addition to concluding the Commission's revocation proceedings against 4 Chinese state-owned operators, OIA has also taken 3 significant initiatives that I'd like to go through. First, we launched a rulemaking that explores regular review of international Section 214 authorizations to account for evolving security risks. Stemming from this effort, a second achievement was completing the first ever comprehensive collection of information from existing international Section 214 holders regarding their foreign ownership. This information will help inform the Commission's next steps in the process. The third significant action is a comprehensive review of the Commission's submarine cable policies. This is the first such effort in over 20 years and seeks to improve and streamline the rules and encourage the deployment of these facilities while supporting security, resilience, and protection of this infrastructure in a modern way. The item also proposes to keep foreign companies that have been denied or had its Section 214 authorization revoked under the Communications Act on national security grounds from obtaining submarine cable landing licenses. At the same time, it proposes to bar the use of equipment or services that are on the FCC covered list from these licensed facilities. I appreciate the dedication and the talented staff in OIA, with the bureaus and offices, and our interagency colleagues in achieving these goals. And also want to express appreciation for your leadership, Madam Chairwoman, and to the commissioners for your support on these very important issues. Thank you.
Thank you to panel 3 for their unprecedented efforts to help improve public safety and network security. And as my colleague Commissioner Starks likes to say all the time, network security is national security. It's a good one. I'm going to use it. All right, let me turn to my colleagues if they have anything. Commissioner Carr.
No, thank you again. We'll continue to follow your lead, but thank you in particular for the robocall work. I'll give that one big shout above all else. Thanks.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, Commissioner Starks.
Yes, I'll save remarks, but truly, especially hearing from the breadth and depth of this panel's work is deeply impressive. Thank you to all.
Commissioner Symington.
A lot of wonderful stuff discussed, but I'll save remarks till the end.
And Commissioner Gomez.
Thank you to each of you and your teams for your leadership and for all the stuff that you do.
All right. Thank you, Commissioners. Now, Madam Secretary, would you announce our next and final panel?
Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners, for the fourth and final panel, Julie Carney, Chief of the Space Bureau, will introduce the panel presentations on the future of communications.
All right.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. I'm Julie Carney, as you said, Chief of the Space Bureau. I am honored to be joining you today virtually from California. Isn't technology amazing? And thanks to all of our colleagues at the Commission who make it possible. We're so grateful. I'm joined on this panel today by my esteemed colleagues who are seated in front of you: Joel Taubenblatt, Chief of the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau; Ira Keltz, Acting Chief of the Office of Engineering and Technology; Ellen Standifer, Chief Human Capital Officer in the FCC's Office of the Managing Director and Superwoman, by the way; Mary Lovejoy, Chief of the Auctions Division in the Office of Economics and Analytics; and my wing woman, Carrie Murray, Deputy Chief and Chief of Staff of the Space Bureau. I offer my deepest thanks to the Chairwoman, Commissioners, and dedicated FCC staff for your belief in the future. At the core of our discussions today is what we as an agency are doing to enable a world that is innovating faster than we ever could have imagined, and in many realms. The future of communications is on the land, in the sea, and in the stars, and beyond. But let's talk about my favorite subject, space, the new space age, and the FCC's Space Bureau. With unanimous Commission support and congressional approval, the Chairwoman officially launched the Bureau, the Space Bureau, in April 2023. The Bureau is designed to support United States leadership in the space economy, promote long-term technical capacity to address satellite policies, and improve our coordination with other agencies on these issues. We were the first telecom agency in the world to establish a Space Bureau, and the world has taken note. Let me give you a sense of the dynamic activity in the commercial space and satellite industry. In 2020, there were 104 launches with 1,232 payloads. In 2024, there were 254 launches with 2,541 payloads. Back in 2020, there were just over 2,000 operational satellites in the sky. Today, there are just under 11,000 satellites in orbit. And here at the FCC, we're seeing a dramatic increase in the number of applications for space and Earth stations. Applications have been increasing by almost 21% each year since calendar year 2020. It's exciting to have a front row seat to the new space age. We consistently hear from companies that they are constantly iterating They're learning, adjusting, and applying new techniques quickly. Some companies note that there is a lot of engineering and testing, but mostly it's about the experience of building and doing that allows them to innovate and improve their capabilities. Over the last several months, we've seen many new and exciting types of space and satellite services. For example, in February 2024, a robotic lander set down on the moon, representing the first lunar landing of an American spacecraft in more than 50 years. The lander is aptly named Odysseus, or ODI, and it's a public-private partnership between NASA and the US company Intuitive Machines. Notably, ODI was the Space Bureau's first license for connectivity on the lunar surface. In September, I was in Southern California and visited a company that's making mineral extraction from asteroids in space a reality. In fact, our OET colleagues granted an experimental license that made them the first company to receive a license from the FCC to operate a commercial mission in deep space. We've also got Earth observation systems from CubeSats imaging the Earth, detecting methane. The aptly named MethaneSat launched in March 2024 and has been sending back a steady stream of critical data. We licensed that too. These exciting developments have implications for other adjacent fields like composite minerals research and manufacturing, and effects on other industries like transportation and agriculture, wildfire monitoring, and community resiliency efforts. And speaking of wildfires, our hearts are with everyone impacted by the LA wildfires. As the chairwoman has noted, the FCC is here to help. At the FCC, seeing firsthand the wide range of applications for space has helped us think about how we can build frameworks that allow companies to have predictability and flexibility at the same time. Our goal is to make the space economy accessible for a wide range of participants by lowering the cost of entry and bringing new capabilities that were historically accessible to a smaller pool of stakeholders. We see the government playing a key role in supporting industry's ability to innovate, which leads me to the FCC's adoption of a key framework for a single network future. In the single network future, we will connect everyone, everywhere. To do this, we'll need it all: fiber networks, licensed terrestrial wireless systems, next generation unlicensed wireless technology, and satellite broadband, seamlessly interacting in a way that is invisible to the user. As the chairwoman often notes, satellites may be in our skies, but they are the anchor tenant in the single network future. In fact, in March 2024, the FCC unanimously adopted a new regulatory framework called Supplemental Coverage from Space that made us the first regulator in the world to issue a framework for connecting satellites directly to consumer handsets using spectrum previously allocated only to terrestrial service. This rulemaking was a joint effort between the hardworking staff of the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, the Office of Engineering and Technology, and the Space Bureau, which worked closely to develop the processes needed to enable these novel collaborations between satellite and terrestrial operators. In November, the Space Bureau issued the first license, and the Wireless Bureau granted the first lease. We've also continued to heavily engage in experimental licensing and testing for additional services, and with OIA involved in the international testing and other approvals. We're eager to move this exciting new service forward and to serve as an example for other administrations around the world. Now let's talk about orbital debris and sustainability. The FCC has long been active in space sustainability and the need to be a good steward of our space operational environment. Given the rapid pace of the satellite and space industry, it's vital for innovations and investments in space-based services to take sustainability into account. This year, the FCC celebrated 20 years of its orbital debris mitigation rules. Since the FCC is responsible for licensing non-governmental satellite systems, we require all applicants to submit orbital debris mitigation plans so that they are responsible for what goes up and what comes down. These rules apply to all applicants, including those who apply for access to the U.S. market from other countries. We updated our orbital debris mitigation rules in 2022 to address the surge in new space ventures and the need to ensure that those ventures work with available space surveillance, space object cataloging, and operator coordination processes to facilitate safe operations. And we caught the world's attention by shortening from 25 years to 5 years the period of time that FCC authorized LEO satellites can remain in orbit following the completion of their missions. Our Enforcement Bureau also issued a fine to a company that failed to comply with its orbital debris mitigation plan. So now let's talk about spectrum to support satellite broadband service and novel spectrum use. At the September 2024 Commission meeting, the FCC took a big next step toward the future of space and opened the 17 gigahertz band for shared use by satellite systems in geostationary and non-geostationary orbits. This action provided 1,300 megahertz of contiguous spectrum to support advanced services, including high-speed broadband access. This will enable LEOs to have greater capacity to support broadband services and low latency applications like video calls and other real-time applications. But I'm not done yet. In November 2024, the Commission adopted new rules to support competition and cooperation in spectrum usage by satellite systems. The rules refine the Commission's non-geostationary satellite orbit fixed satellite service, or NGSO FSS, spectrum sharing regime. Specifically, the rules provide clarity regarding sharing between systems licensed in different processing rounds, granting primary spectrum access to systems approved earlier, while enabling new entrants to participate in an established cooperative spectrum sharing structure. These updates provide certainty for operators and facilitate innovation in system design, which will ultimately benefit broadband users. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight the role of the Space Bureau in the future of communications and for your tremendous unanimous support. It has been an honor to serve at the Commission. I am so proud of the Space Bureau team and the entire Commission, and I'm very pleased to pass the lightsaber over to Joel Taubenblatt, who will talk about the phenomenal work of our Wireless Telecommunications Bureau. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. On behalf of my amazing colleagues in the Wireless Bureau, I am very pleased to present highlights of the Commission's work to facilitate licensed terrestrial wireless services. I also wanted to say a quick thanks to our colleagues in OEA and OET, including Julia McHenry and Ron Rapazzi, who have collaborated with us on many of these efforts. First of all, under the Chairwoman's leadership, we have focused on making more spectrum available for 5G, including critical mid-band spectrum. For example, the Commission completed its service rules for the 3.45 gigahertz band, which led to OEA's work towards an auction of new licenses that raised almost $23 billion in gross bids. The Commission auctioned and issued licenses for 2.5 gigahertz spectrum. The Commission issued licenses for 3.5 gigahertz spectrum and 3.7 gigahertz spectrum as well. And now the Commission is moving speedily to make available through auction inventory licenses in the AWS-3 band, which will fund equipment rip and replace efforts. And together, what all of this means is that the Commission's efforts is helping wireless networks increase capacity, which is providing more services and technologies to consumers and businesses throughout the country. The Chairwoman has also broadened the Commission's mid-band focus to include the 7 to 16 gigahertz range. This has led to the Commission's proposal to repurpose the upper 12 gigahertz band for flexible use wireless services, and to staff's engagement with our federal colleagues to explore opportunities for further use of the 7 gigahertz band. The Commission has also looked higher in the frequency range to the 70, 80, 90 gigahertz bands to be able to make those available for 5G wireless backhaul and for broadband to aircraft and ships. The Commission, in addition, has looked to make 5G-ready spectrum available to a wide array of users. For example, the Commission launched its Enhanced Competition Incentive Program, which provides incentives to licensees to provide access to spectrum to small carriers, to tribal nations, and to entities who are covering rural areas. In the 2.5 gigahertz rural tribal priority window, the Commission or the agency granted license applications covering more than 430 tribal nations and the Native Hawaiian community. Now, the Commission has also been very focused on spectrum for other key technologies and services, recognizing that spectrum-based services are important to a wide variety of stakeholders. For example, the Commission has adopted rules that have provided for initial operations of uncrewed aircraft systems in the 5 gigahertz band, have made additional spectrum available for commercial space launches in the 2 gigahertz range, has ensured that the 4.9 gigahertz band can be used efficiently to support public safety missions nationwide, and has made a portion of the 5.9 gigahertz band available for CV2X technology that will help facilitate efficient and safe communication for vehicular transportation. Now, as the demand for spectrum has increased and the supply of spectrum has gotten more scarce, the chairwoman has encouraged and called upon the agency to get creative as we think about ways to allow for multiple spectrum uses to coexist together. This has meant that, for example, in the 3.5 gigahertz band, the FCC, NTIA, and the Department of Navy collaborated successfully to increase uninterrupted access to spectrum to areas covering more than 72 million new members of the population. And also the Commission issued an NPRM to seek broad comment on a variety of rule changes for the Citizens Broadband Radio Service to enhance that service and that band for current and future users. Commission staff, along with our federal counterparts, re-energized work in the lower 37 gigahertz band to evaluate the best way to implement a shared framework for federal and non-federal use. And the Commission initiated a proceeding to examine whether spectrum utilization could be enhanced by looking at new data sources and technologies like artificial intelligence. I am very proud to be representing the Wireless Bureau here today and my many colleagues there. I want to say thank you so much to the chairwoman for your stewardship of this agency. Thank you to Commissioners Carr, Starks, Symington, and Gomez for your leadership and support. And I am very pleased to turn the RF transmitting device over to my colleague, Ira Keltz, to talk about the great work of OET.
Thank you, Joel and Julie, and good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. As noted by my colleagues, the Commission has been busy expanding licensed uses to position the U.S. for continued global leadership on spectrum use, including 5G, satellite networks, and the coming 6G. But equally as important, we've been busy expanding spectrum for unlicensed devices. With low entry barriers, developments in unlicensed devices are often harbingers of what the future may hold for licensed systems. In recent years, the FCC has made groundbreaking decisions in the 6 gigahertz and 60 gigahertz bands to unlock that potential. These decisions create an unlicensed landscape unsurpassed across the globe and keeps the U.S. in position as a global leader in these critical spectrum resources. In the 6 gigahertz band, the Commission expanded access for unlicensed devices to an additional 1,200 megahertz, which supports new Wi-Fi 6E devices as well as sets the stage for Wi-Fi 7 and beyond. By permitting low-power indoor, standard power, and very low-power devices, this decision not only supports faster and more reliable connectivity for consumers, but also lays the foundation for smart homes, telehealth, augmented reality, and virtual reality applications, and next-generation industrial applications. Similarly, in the 60 gigahertz band rules, we expanded the universe of unlicensed devices in 14 gigahertz of spectrum beyond simple networking technologies to deliver new high-tech radar applications such as vehicular safety applications designed to ensure that a child is never again forgotten in the backseat of a car. These rules also provide innovative applications for drones as well as other uses. We've also been setting the stage for the future by adjusting our policies for wireless transfer applications, and which can untether devices and lower costs, as well as foster innovation by permitting devices to be located in places difficult to connect with a power source. Finally, it's worth mentioning that all of this work is possible through both our robust experimental licensing program and the ongoing efforts to keep the table of frequency allocations updated. Both provide integral support for new technologies and applications, not only those being actively developed, but also the next great ideas that are still in the minds of tomorrow's innovators and creators. Through strategic allocations and a commitment to innovation, the FCC is not only addressing today's connectivity challenges, but also building a framework for a future defined by seamless, ubiquitous, and intelligent communications. I want to thank the chairwoman and the commissioners for their support on these issues and all my colleagues within OET. I now turn to Ellen Standiford to describe OMD's work to support all of the Commission's bureaus and offices.
Thank you, Ira. Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. On behalf of Managing Director Mark Stevens, it is my pleasure to highlight the work of OMD in supporting the accomplishments of the bureaus and offices at the FCC. For example, the Office of Managing Director was proud to take the lead on the reorganization process for establishing the Space Bureau and Office of International Affairs in place of the International Bureau. OMD, and particularly staff in OMD Financial Operations and staff in the Office of Legislative Affairs, work closely together to answer questions and secure approval of the reorganization from the Office of Management and Budget and the FCC's Appropriations Committees. OMD staff also work closely with the Office of General Counsel to draft the order, including identifying and updating or revising over 100 FCC rules to account for the reorganization, demonstrating the impact and criticality of the work of the two new organizations. The number of rule changes also required detailed and dedicated coordination between staff and OMD Office of the Secretary and the Federal Register to ensure that the order and rule changes were appropriately and timely published. Once these organizations were launched, OMD staff and human resources engaged with our union partners from the National Treasury Employees Unions to fulfill the FCC's bargaining obligations, and HR staff facilitated and processed all the required personnel actions to effectuate the new organizations. Then, OMD administration's operations ensured that the new organizations had the physical space within the FCC headquarters to accommodate both teams. In light of their critical missions and expanded portfolios, OMD then supported the Space Bureau and the Office of International Affairs in leveraging existing talent inside the FCC and attracting new and hiring new expertise from outside the agency to join their organizations. For example, since the Space Bureau and OIA were established, we were able to hire 22 additional staff for those organizations, including 6 engineers to assist in processing the increased number of applications Julie previously mentioned, among other things. We also partnered with Olin College to bring on Dr. Whitney Lohmeyer as the FCC's chief technologist, who has been invaluable in leading Space Bureau efforts and collaborating with OET colleagues, particularly on the single network future. Human Resources also worked closely with OGC to leverage the Honors Attorneys Program, provide a pipeline for new attorney talent to both the Space Bureau and OIA, as well as other bureaus and offices across the FCC. Under the chairwoman's leadership, HR reinvigorated its Honors Engineer Program and expanded the use of the Pathways Intern Program to build a better pipeline for new talent at the FCC. HR partnered with OET, OGC, OWD, and representatives from various FCC affinity groups to attend career fairs at historically Black colleges and universities, Hispanic-serving institutions, veterans-focused career fairs, and public interest career events. OMD's Enterprise Acquisition, or EAC, and Office of Chief Information Officer, OCIO, ensured that the FCC had necessary contracts and IT systems in place to support the missions of the Space Bureau and all other FCC bureaus and offices. Both EAC and OCIO have been instrumental in assisting the Space Bureau, OIA, WTB, and OET in modernizing and maintaining critical license and application systems such as ICFS, ULS, and the OET experimental licensing system. From the people, the finances, physical space and security, contracts, IT, and documentation to publication of FCC programs and orders, the Office of Managing Director has supported the critical work of the FCC bureaus and offices. And we thank the chairwoman and commissioners for their leadership and support.
Thank you to panel 4. We have leaned hard into the future. I appreciate all your work. All right, now the moment of glory. I will ask my colleagues if they have statements. So we'll start with you, Commissioner Carr.
Is this the?
This is it.
This is the
This is
time. Okay. I'm ready. I've been choosing my words carefully.
All right.
Well, first of all, obviously, thank
We'll
you
see
to
about that.
Yeah, thank you to this panel in particular, but thank you to all the panels, and frankly, thank you to all the staff of the FCC for the tremendous effort that you've put in. Obviously, not just the last 4 years, but the many, many years before that. But today in particular, we're focused on the chairwoman and her time and her leadership and the decisions that she's made and sort of left an indelible mark on the agency. And you all sort of helped her to carry that out and to fulfill it. I'm grateful for you. I think the FCC staff is really the best of the best, and look forward to continuing to work with you all. And to the chairwoman, thank you for your leadership. I've mostly enjoyed working with you through the last 4 years, most occasions.
Same.
We had sort of a unique opportunity early on with an extended 2-2. I'm hoping personally not to relive the extended 2-2. I really liked it for a while there, but now my perspective on that might be a little different. Different seat, different perspective. But thank you for reaching out very early in your time leading this agency and looking to support some of the ideas and the work that I had. And it's something that is a unique opportunity, being not in the majority, having the chance to work with the chair and get some policies across the finish line. And so really appreciate you reaching out and doing that. I thought we made some really good progress together, and just thank you for your leadership, and look forward to more great things from you. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Carr. Commissioner Starks.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I addressed panel 1, but now here I'll also say I saved my powder, and here we go. After that first panel, of course, as I mentioned, ACP was such a critical program, very close and dear to my heart, focusing on those who are vulnerable and need, of course, to stay connected. And the FCC stepped up into high gear. One of the things that really, I think, speaks volumes, nearly 50% of the connected enrolled households in ACP were of a veteran. And of course, millions of Black and Brown, African American and Latino households also relied on ACP for their programming. I'm especially proud, as was mentioned, of Your Home, Your Internet, the pilot program that I worked with the chair and with the teams on, for those who are enrolling based upon their eligibility for federal housing assistance. As I've long said, if you are in affordable housing, we can help get you connected in that housing. The eligible households we got enrolled through our efforts, nearly 1.5 million more eligible households enrolled by the time the FCC froze enrollment in February 8th. It was an increase on that particular part of nearly 300%, something I'm very proud of. And proud to have worked alongside with so many here, including the chair and the team. Your Home, Your Internet pilot program also solidified our relationship with the U.S. Department of Housing and Development, HUD, of which I think in many ways it's never been closer. The MOU we executed there has continued and absolutely is a great boon to this agency and to theirs. To panel 2, thank you and commend you for all that were involved in the steadfast efforts, again, to help those who are the most vulnerable. Under the leadership of the chair, The Commission has implemented historic legislation to ensure that our communication is secure and accessible. The Safe Connections Act, as we heard, helping survivors of domestic violence. Our rules there are incredibly important, as we heard as well, helping those that are, for 988 thinking and helping those that are in a life-saving moment that we can help there. The Martha Wright Reed Just and Reasonable Communications Act is something that is a legacy piece. For sure, helping those families that need to stay connected with somebody who is incarcerated. To panel 3, from individual households to global corporations, the need for robust security has never been more critical, and so glad that the chair has focused on this in leadership. Submarine cables is, of course, an issue that I focused on many, many years ago, as I highlighted in numerous speeches and including in my statement, and I'm so glad that we have moved into action there. The Cyber Trust Mark, I think, is something that is going to be incredibly important to Americans and to consumers as we get that. I'm deeply committed to getting that up and rolling, as we heard at CES, as the chairwoman did with Ann Neuberger, that good things there are still to come. We have focused something that I have also been committed to, updating our cybersecurity risk management programs, supply chain management programs, to making sure, in particular where we're subsidizing build out, that those networks are secure. And so we now require providers on our enhanced ACAM, 5G fund, Elastic Connect fund, all of them now have specific requirements for cybersecurity, supply chain management, an issue that I've long been focused on, rip and replace as well. And the chairwoman has helped us get finally here. We got the amount of money that we needed appropriated. Eradicating Huawei and ZTE from our networks. The RIP and Replace program is going to finally help secure our networks and getting the equipment and services once and for all eradicated from equipment and services that are susceptible to risk. Thank you to the Enforcement Bureau, my former home, for all of the hard work that team has done, from, as you heard, novel, groundbreaking AI enforcement actions to the countless robocall enforcements to the field office that has led the way on so many issues as well. The Media Bureau, a special shout out there for their hard work on seeing geo broadcast to market. It's an innovative technology that we'll continue to see bear out. And to panel 4 here. One of the most important functions of the FCC is keeping that pace setter function for innovation. The Space Bureau is, again, another just tremendous, absolute legacy piece, legacy play that will continue to redound benefits to Americans and to our global leadership. And direct to sell, of course, as well. So as the chairwoman has said, to our single network future. So it's a great day to reflect not only on the FCC, what we've achieved, but of course the challenges that we see moving forward. It was quite a sobering moment when Chief Jordan mentioned the extensive number of hurricanes, just to hear them listed out that we've had over just the last recent number of years. AI is something that's going to continue to need our focus on. Salt Typhoon is a true inflection point that we're going to have here moving forward. I noticed as well, not only the robust work that we had across and within the FCC, but across the government, something that the chairwoman has led on, and that is coordinating collaboration with the states as well. The 49, I don't know who is that holdout state, chairwoman, but I have no
Nebraska.
doubt. Nebraska, well.
You work on that.
And so let me close really with that. We can focus on policy, which we've done extensively here today, but I'm always focused on people as well. And so I've traveled with many of you. I see so many friends here with you, with events, with FCC staff, with other colleagues. There's no question that the FCC has the most knowledgeable, most committed, most effective workers, and we are, of course, as strong as its people, and so I'm proud to say that we are indeed very strong. And of course, acknowledging Chairwoman Rosenworcel's historic term leading this agency. Under your leadership, we have reached new heights in space, new depths in submarines, and everything in between. You have been a committed, dedicated public servant, and thank you for all that you've done as chair. Deeply look forward to the continuing relationship. We started as I said before, as commissioners, minority commissioners together, where we would huddle together and strategize, and it's just been great to see you fly and fly so high. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner Starks. Commissioner Symington.
Thank you. So, as some of you will remember, I joined the commission on December 14th, 2020. And so, in other words, about 5 weeks before going into a minority, where I've spent all of my terms thus far, it's the balance of my term thus far. It's been an interesting experience. I want to thank the chairwoman for taking us through what I think is a real inflection point, to use Commissioner Starks' phrase, in the direction of the commission. I'd like to talk about that a little bit more. But first, I just want to mention, in terms of personal history, it's been a little while since we've had another commissioner who has not served a term at the FCC on staff in some capacity prior to working here. And I think that gives me a useful outsider perspective. And one of the ways it gives me a useful outsider perspective is that it saves me from taking the incredibly high caliber of FCC staff expertise, morale, and commitment for granted, because this is not necessarily the norm in other agencies or in the business world. So when I first joined the commission, I didn't really know who to hire, and in fact, we were all remote. And so all my initial staff were detailees, and every single one of them was incredible, even though they were very junior in a number of cases. So that was an early auspicious sign for me that my time at the FCC was going to be very professionally productive, and that I was going to have to work every day to keep up with the high quality of the staff. So I'm glad I get the chance to say those general words of appreciation and thanks, because there's been so much of importance that's been presented here today that I don't know how I could possibly adequately highlight some of it without it all really deserves to be highlighted. So just please take my immense gratitude and appreciation as read. Instead, I'd like to go back to what I see as the key pivot that's underway at the Commission and will no doubt continue to pick up momentum because of the pressures coming on the Commission from outside. So the FCC has a wide variety of traditional focuses and responsibilities, and we also have very broad jurisdiction. Interstate and international communication by wire and radio is a huge field, and while it's undeniable that some of our traditional responsibilities are decreasing in significance and scope with the decline of particular industries or technologies, our overall relevance has never been greater, and our overall centrality to American life is, in my view, only likely to increase. If we were to pick just two examples from this current term, the formation of Space Bureau and the establishment of the Cyber Trust Mark program are two examples of how the breadth and changing focus of FCC jurisdiction will create new areas of emphasis at the Commission in response to changes in technology and society. In my view, future FCCs will best serve the public interest by thinking through the highest value applications of our jurisdiction instead of necessarily the most historically prominent ones. There's not always 100% overlap there. And I've got confidence, every confidence in the world that the FCC is up to this job. So I look forward to future commissions continuing to evolve our relationships, in particular with the manufacturing industry, with national security, and with trade agencies, and in general addressing new responsibilities emerging from the changing role of telecommunications in our society. Likely the only constant will be the high quality and commitment of the FCC staff throughout this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Symington, especially for those kind words about the staff. Commissioner Gomez.
Oh, sorry, it's my turn. Wow. Today's presentations are so impressive, and they demonstrate the complexity of running this agency. And as today's presentations highlight, so much has been accomplished under the chairwoman's leadership. Everyone at the FCC, every bureau and office chief and every member of their teams should be proud of the incredible work they have done to serve the public, from protecting consumers to fostering competition to ensuring U.S. leadership on the global stage. I appreciate the talent, dedication, and hard work it takes to accomplish all this, and I thank you all for your efforts and commitment to public service. As we move into the new year and the new administration, I will continue to remain focused on the pillars that guide my work as a commissioner: connectivity, innovation, public safety, and a strong and independent media ecosystem. With respect to connectivity, as Alejandro Rourke showed earlier, the ACP, and others too, the ACP was the most successful tool we've ever had to close the digital divide. It addressed a long overlooked yet critical piece of the puzzle, and that's affordability. Notwithstanding the historic program's success, Congress did not provide additional funding, leading to the program's termination. This caused millions of people to lose critical support for connectivity they need for work, education, healthcare, and more. We must not lose the important goal of ensuring that affordability is part of our connectivity efforts going forward, and I stand ready to work with Congress and my fellow commissioners on this important issue. On the innovation front, our talented staff led wireless innovation domestically and internationally. We expanded unlicensed spectrum uses for new devices and championed innovative hybrid satellite terrestrial communications. But securing the reinstatement of our auction authority remains critical to our continued economic success and global leadership. Equally important is continuing the implementation of the National Spectrum Strategy, regardless of who is in charge. And the reliability and security of networks remains top of mind. From devastating hurricanes to horrific wildfires, we've seen time and again why the reliability of our communications networks is vital. It saves lives. I'm proud of the work we've done in this arena. I also believe that it is imperative that we continue to prioritize protecting communications networks from insidious cyber attacks and remove insecure equipment from our nation's networks. And I plan to continue to support these efforts. And we must continue to uphold the FCC's long-standing pillars of media policy, preserving localism, competition, and diversity in broadcast media. With mis and disinformation on the rise, local journalism is as important as ever. And I will continue to highlight the media literacy education efforts and tools that consumers can use to discern the truthfulness of the information about issues that matter to them the most. Looking to the year ahead, I am concerned about the apparent campaign to bring broadcasters and content platforms to heel. We should all be concerned. First and foremost, we must respect the protections of the First Amendment and the restrictions of the Communications Act. This means that government should not bully anyone for what they say or don't say, and the Commission is explicitly prohibited from censoring broadcasters. We must continue to uphold freedom of speech throughout the expanding media ecosystem and the freedom of choice for consumers. Finally, the work to protect consumers never ends, and I will continue to talk about what's at stake for them. As I've said before, our agency does best when our work honors the people we serve. The Federal Communications Commission was created to ensure that communication services reach all people in the United States. It is our foundational mission to serve all. I will continue to live this mission and advance it as a commissioner. And now I will offer brief remarks in Spanish. A medida que avanzamos en este nuevo año y hacia una nueva administración, seguiré concentrada en los pilares que guían mi trabajo como comisionada: la conectividad, la innovación, la seguridad pública y un ecosistema de medios de comunicación fuerte e independiente. El trabajo dirigido a proteger a los consumidores nunca termina y continuaré refiriéndome a lo que está en juego para ellos. Lo he dicho antes, nuestra agencia funciona mejor cuando nuestro trabajo honra a quienes atendemos. La Comisión Federal de Comunicaciones se creó para garantizar los servicios de comunicaciones lleguen a todos en los Estados Unidos. Nuestra misión fundamental es servirles. Como comisionada continuaré cumpliendo e impulsando esta misión. Hoy felicito a la presidenta de la FCC, Jessica Rosenworcel, por su liderazgo, y a cada miembro de la FCC por su dedicación y arduo trabajo de servicio público. Finally, I congratulate Chairwoman Rosenworcel for her historic leadership. Please accept my sincere thanks for your friendship as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you, commissioners. As everyone has already noted, this is my last meeting as chairwoman of the Federal Communications Commission, so that means it's the last statement I'm going to deliver with this gavel in hand. So I thought it would be interesting to look back and see what I said during my first meeting after taking the reins at this agency. It was 4 years ago next week. And those remarks were delivered in the most august of settings, a conference call over Zoom. But there was one passage from my remarks that day that stood out. We have work to do to put consumers first. We have work to do to support digital equity, especially in communities that have been overlooked and underserved for too long. We need to advance communications policies that keep the public safe and cyber secure. We have work to do to continue our history-making wireless and auction policies that serve as a global model. We have work to do to build bridges and find common ground with our state, local, and tribal partners. We have work to do to ensure that our functional equivalency policies live up to our responsibilities under the Americans with Disabilities Act. We have work to do to keep our media policies current while also honoring our long-standing values of competition, localism, and diversity. We have work to do to ensure that all students have the internet access they need for a fair shot at 21st century success, no matter who they are or where they live. And we have work to do to ensure open, reliable, and affordable broadband reaches 100% of this country, rural areas, urban areas, and everything in between. Now, based on today's presentations, I don't think there is any question that, on every count, we did the work and we delivered for the people of the United States. Working together, we were able to build the largest broadband affordability effort in our nation's history. Working together, we launched the first ever Space Bureau and created a single network future that is going to change communications around the globe. Working together, we built broadband maps that are light years ahead of anything that came before. Working together, we put national security and cybersecurity front and center, for the first time in history, revoking service authorizations and removing insecure equipment in our networks. Working together, we closed the homework gap like never before, helping millions of students and making sure wireless hotspots are available for loan in every school and library across the country. Working together, we made communications more just for more people in more places with texting to 988, wireless emergency alerts in more than a dozen languages, and safe connections for survivors of domestic violence. Working together, we finally made prison payphone rates just and reasonable, and we built a new version of Amber Alerts to help the women and girls who go missing on tribal lands. Working together, we also made communications more secure with the first of its kind U.S. Cybersecurity Trust Mark coming soon to billions of Internet of Things devices. These actions, and all the others that were mentioned today, fill me with a real sense of pride. They also fill me with gratitude because they were only possible thanks to the work of others. So I want to acknowledge the people who helped make this happen. First, I want to thank my colleagues at the Commission, Brendan, Jeffrey, Nathan, and Anna. We don't always see things the same way, but I think together we have turned down the noise and ramped up the work. I think the most valuable thing to do in this role is just to get stuff done, and on that score, we have made real progress. We put a lot of wins on the board that made meaningful difference in the lives of people in every corner of this country. And we did it while transitioning our way out of a historic pandemic that disrupted life like nothing before. I want to thank my personal staff. Hardly a week goes by where I don't think I could make it through without my Chief of Staff, Narda Jones, my Chief Counsel, Priscilla Delgado Ardris, or my Chief Legal Advisor, Ramesh Nagarajan. Of course, For years, I'd said just about the same thing about Travis Littman, Kate Black, and Umair Javed. Narda, Priscilla, and Ramesh replaced the irreplaceable, and I'm well aware of how fortunate I am to have had so many remarkably talented people stepping up to be a part of my team and help advance this agency's mission. I especially appreciate the work of my advisors because way back at the turn of the millennium, I served as staff in one of the bureaus, and later I walked in their shoes when I became an advisor to Commissioner Copps. And a quick aside, I just want to offer him a big thank you. He is a model of what we want in our public servants, and I will be forever grateful that he provided me with the opportunity to serve in his office. And I know from that experience that being an advisor is work that takes skill, grace, and determination, lots of it. So in addition to Narda, Priscilla, Ramesh, Travis, Kate, and Umair, let me thank Jonathan Campbell, Elizabeth Kuttner, Rashawn Duvall, Trent Harkrader, Holly Sauer, Carmen Scarrato, David Strickland, Sanford Williams, Dewana Terry, Paloma Perez, Brian Phillips, and Jonathan Urarte. And of course, we will always remember my first wireless advisor, Ethan Lucarelli, who also served as the first head of our new Office of International Affairs, and as many of you know, tragically died at age 42. We are all better for having had Ethan pass through our lives. And when we talk about personal staff, my office would not be complete without the assistance of our most valuable players, and that's Andy Roane, Orel Porter, Ovanda Walker, Antonio Moore, and earlier on, Taylor Grant. I already thanked a lot of them after their presentations, but I want to give a big thank you to all of our past and present bureau chiefs and office leaders. So let me list them out. Marlene Dortch, Loyani Gall, Michelle Ellison, Trent Harkrader again, Peter Hyun, Deborah Jordan, Julie Kearney, Ira Keltz, Jean Cadu, Bambi Kraus, Kate Matraves, Brian Moulton, Paloma Perez again, Alejandro Roark, Susie Rosen Singleton, Holly Sauer again, Troy Tanner, Joel Tabenblatt, Dewana Terry again, and Jeff Tignor. Thank you also to Ron Rapazzi and Julia McHenry, who recently left the agency but also served in really important leadership roles. Every one of these people knows how to translate ideas into action, and I am so grateful for their service. Special thanks also go to Mark Stevens and everyone in the Office of Managing Director, which has to be the agency's most unsung and most indispensable office, and you're gonna learn. Most importantly, though, thank you to the FCC staff. And this is where I could really easily get myself in trouble, because if I start naming people, I just wouldn't know where to stop. But I thought I could be forgiven for singling someone out because somebody actually already did it for us. You see, each year, a group called the Partnership for Public Service hands out the Service to America medals, which they're actually called the Oscars of Government Service. And back in 2021, one of our own, senior economist Evan Quirrell, was recognized with their Career Achievement Award. Now, he was recognized because he is the person most responsible for what is probably this agency's greatest ever policy innovation, spectrum auctions. In a 1985 white paper, he proposed allocating spectrum through auctions. And he then worked with two economists from Stanford to design those auctions. And in 1993, he wrote the first rules for conducting those auctions. In 2020, those Stanford economists were awarded the Nobel Prize for their pioneering work on spectrum auctions. And when they were, they said, it would have been appropriate for Evan to share the prize. This is the same extraordinary work, by the way, that led to the FCC receiving an Emmy Award this year, too. So this story is the most vivid example I could think of to make the following point. When it comes to technology policy, the FCC's staff are our nation's best and the world's best. That unparalleled expertise, matched by a commitment to serving others, makes it possible for us to build a digital future that works for everyone. I wish that I could thank every one of you by name, but to all the FCC staff who are here or if watching online, please know that I deeply admire you and I deeply appreciate you. All right, I know this has been a long meeting, and you've heard a lot about programs and policies, and I just ticked off a whole lot of names. I won't hold it against anybody if you missed some of the details. To me, though, today's meeting tells a story, and it is a story of what makes the FCC so special. I think it comes down to three things. One, at the FCC, we help write the future. If you look at every great challenge before our country, how we grow our economy, how we learn, how we treat the sick, how we heal our planet, how we govern ourselves, communications technology is part of the solution. It touches every facet of our lives, and that's only going to be truer and truer as time goes on. What's particularly exciting and daunting is that technology is constantly evolving with each new advancement, whether it's 6G or Wi-Fi 7, connectivity from space or uncrewed drones, quantum computing or AI. We open up new possibilities. At the FCC, we get to play a part in building the future. This is as thrilling as it is fulfilling. The second thing that makes the FCC special is the power of all. So many of the actions you heard about today are an outgrowth of the agency's founding mandate to make communications available to all the people of the United States. That mandate is a reflection of our nation's founding premise that all of us are created equal, and it is an extension of the enduring promise of opportunity for all that is at the heart of the American dream. The third thing that makes the FCC special is its people. And to talk about this, I want to roll back to my very first confirmation hearing to serve as a commissioner at the agency. It was in late 2011. So let me set the stage. After serving in the trenches at the FCC, I went on to serve as staff on Capitol Hill for two individuals who knew how to legislate and get stuff done, Senator Inouye and Senator Rockefeller. I spent the bulk of my time working for Senator Rockefeller, who became a great friend, mentor, and sponsor. He was the one I worked with closely to develop the first nationwide network for first responders, making it possible to honor the last remaining recommendation from the 9/11 Commission. But on that day I first testified before Congress, I went from being his staff to being seated at the witness table. It's a real change in perspective. Before this, I dutifully sat behind legislators as they asked questions. Now I was the one answering them. The one thing I understood without a doubt was the strength of the FCC staff because I had been among them. So I began my testimony talking about public service and the FCC staff, as I said on that day. The FCC staff is not just uncommonly talented and knowledgeable about communications law and policy, it's an exceptional group of public servants. And I think public service is a special calling. I also like to think that it runs in my family. I grew up mostly in New England with pit stops in southern Illinois and northern New Jersey along the way. My father served in the Air Force and later went on to a career as a nephrologist in Hartford, Connecticut. For 3 decades, he ran the city's clinic for hypertension and kidney failure. And my mother spent over 2 decades helping run a soup kitchen. My grandfather, before them, served in the United States Customs Service right here in Washington. And my great-grandfather, before that, served the public in a different way. He was an immigrant who swept the streets of New York. Those words resonate now, even more than they did back then. One reason is that over the years of my leadership, the people in this agency have reaffirmed my faith. Day in and day out, they impress me with their thoughtful take about every aspect of communications technology. They also remind me that the words I said were true. Public service is a special calling. And public service demands a lot from us, and that has certainly been my experience leading this agency. I am the first woman confirmed to do so. And I was able to break a glass ceiling because my family helped pick up the pieces at home. So thank you to my husband, Mark, my children, Caroline and Emmett, and even our rescue dog, Bo. They are my everything. and they're going to be seeing a whole lot more of me in the days to come. Thank you to President Biden for giving me the opportunity to make history. It has been the privilege of a lifetime. All right. Now I got to close out this meeting as usual. So would any of my colleagues like to make any announcements at this time? Commissioner Carr, Commissioner Starks, Commissioner Symington, Commissioner Gomez. All right. But before we adjourn, I have a few announcements. First, I've got an award announcement, and then I've got retirements. I'm not the only one walking out the building. The award announcement is for the FCC Employee of the Year. This is an award that was established by the FCC and NTEU back in 2000. This year, a joint union management committee has identified 6 recipients, so I'd like to congratulate them publicly right now. Valerie Barish from the Office of Economics and Analytics. If you're here, please stand. Here. James Butts from the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau. Connor Ferraro from the Wireline Competition Bureau. Amanda Hilfiger from the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau. Stephen Kaufman from the Office of Economics and Analytics. And Jamyu Otumbunda from the Office of Economics and Analytics as well. But special points to Valerie, who showed up. All right, congratulations to all of our recipients, and thank you for your extraordinary service to the Commission. Now, I've got 9 retirements, so I'm going to give a very brief acknowledgement for each one. From the Media Bureau, I want to acknowledge Rosemary Harold, who's right there in the front row today. She served in so many positions at this agency, and we are sorry to see her go, as well as David Snevely, who is retiring also from the Media Bureau. Bill Dever is retiring from the Office of General Counsel after 30 years of service at the FCC. Joyce Jones is retiring from the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau after 18 years of service at the FCC. The Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau has 3 retirements: Kim Wild, Brian Ulmer, and Lyle Yoshida. And Lyle, who helped immeasurably with the digital television transition, is retiring after 26 years of service at the Commission. Tony Serafini is retiring after 34 years with the Commission, all in the Office of Engineering and Technology. And from the Wireline Competition Bureau, Katie King is retiring after 27 years at the FCC, all of which she spent working on the Universal Service High Cost Fund. I just want to say thank you to all those retirees. You can do the math. It's a whole lot of years of federal service. So if my colleagues don't have any further announcements, Madam Secretary, please announce the date of the next FCC agenda meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The next agenda meeting of the Federal Communications Commission will occur in February 2025.
We'll be in touch on it.
All right, until then, we stand adjourned.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. If folks could just quiet down just a little bit, we're going to be hosting the Chairwoman's final open meeting press conference. If folks could just quiet down just a tad, that'd be greatly appreciated. All right. Thanks, everyone. All right. For the final time, I am Paloma Perez-Christie, the Director of Office of Media Relations. And I just want to say to our journalists in the room and folks who are watching online, it's been a real privilege to work alongside you guys. This agency does a lot of important work, and it wouldn't be communicated to the public without y'all. So really appreciate that. And then also just thank you to the chairwoman for all her hard work and the privilege to serve. I am the daughter of a person who mows lawns for a living, and my mom takes care of the elderly. And as a first-generation college graduate, I wouldn't be able to do the work I do here today without the support of leaders like Chairwoman Rosenworcel. So with that, I invite her to the podium.
Thank you, Paloma, who, by the way, I only got to know during the pandemic and spent an alarming amount of time never seeing her in person, but was convinced she was the right person to come help me set up my office. And she's the first Latina to run the Office of Media Relations at the FCC, and she's a dynamo and a force to be reckoned with. But of course, in one of those pandemic era kind of experiences, the first time I saw her in person, I just turned to her immediately and was like, oh, you're really tall. We were all at one point just simply boxes on a screen. All right, it's been an honor to run this agency, to lead it. I quite literally started at the bottom and wound up on top. But the one thing that has been apparent to me during this entire time is this place has amazing staff. And if I have looked good during the last 4 years, it's because of people like Paloma and others who I mentioned today, who have really done the work, not just for me, but for the American people. So, all right, let's go ahead.
Well, first off, thank you, Chairwoman, for your ongoing work with the press. It's definitely been a pleasure to work with you. We'd love to ask you about the status of the cybersecurity item that you floated back in December. How many folks have voted on that? Are we going to see that anytime soon? Or will this be, an item that we can expect to see after the transition?
We're working on it. What's clear to me is what's been said by so many others. Salt Typhoon is the largest telecommunications hack in our nation's history. We have a choice right now to be serious about it and make some changes, or to sit back, look the other way, and just hope things will be different in the future. I shared with my colleagues a proposal that is thoughtful, that uses the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act in a new way that meets this moment, and I think it's a framework we're going to need in the future.
One more question, if I may. Will the FCC be seeking national security review for Skydance Paramount in light of the designation of Tencent as a Chinese military company? Does that change the FCC's assessment at all?
I don't have an answer for you right now, but I would be happy to refer you to the Media Bureau.
Thank you.
Hi, Madam Chairwoman.
Hi.
I wanted to ask about following the Sixth Circuit ruling on Title II. Just one more response on this. And I know you'd like Congress to act. How optimistic are you the lawmakers will tackle not just throttling, but some of the issues that Title II would address?
Well, I'm a public servant by nature. You want us to be optimistic. I think that the American public has made clear over and over again, they want an internet that is open, fast, and fair. And when we do not act at the federal level, states have stepped into the void, as we see with state laws, state executive orders, and state contracting policies in nearly a dozen places around this country. So if Washington doesn't choose to develop these policies, I think unfortunately we'll be ceding that territory to states around the country. I think a national policy is what the public wants, and I'm still hopeful that that's something that can come about in any effort to rewrite or rethink our nation's communications laws.
Could I ask one more follow-up? It's a general question. Do you have any advice for your successor on effectively leading this agency?
I think if you take care of the staff here, they will take care of you. They're amazing. Time and time again, they have impressed me with their uncommon knowledge of communications law and policy. And if you want to lean into the future, make sure that the people in this building are respected. Thank you.
And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks, everyone.